Hey there everybody, Mazrock here, and today we are doing our Season 2 tank tier list with a little bit of a personalized twist. If you like this sort of content, please do like, comment, and subscribe. It goes such a long way towards helping out the channel. There's a Patreon link down below if you want early access tank club guides, early access YouTube vids, all the stuff, like bunch of great stuff. Go, Patreon link down below. There's a merch link as well if you want your I Only Do Dungeons Fully Erect t-shirts, your Blood DK I'm the Healer Now shirts, as well as a list of new WoW Pug Bingo merch. So, it was asked for, you got it. There's a Discord link down below as well. Come on in, join a wonderful community full of great people, and a Twitch stream as I start my D-Gen Twitch stream this week with the release of 10.1. Alright, so the disclaimer, personalization here. So while we are taking the meta into account, this tier list is not a meta tier list. This is what I think pretty much people can pick up and play. So self-sustain, ease of play, how good they are in pugs is another one. Because while it's nice to say this tank is insanely good in organized content, where you have 4 other people and you're working around everything, though maybe when you get into a pug, it's not as good because you might not get a good healer that knows when you're in trouble or, you know, things like that. Since that's the majority of the content that you guys play, really, right? Like, you know, not everyone is running bleeding edge keys in hyper-organized content. But, yeah. So, let's get into the tier list. Let's get the completely obvious out of the way. Paladin, S tier. The affixes for... Now, this is primarily going to be based around Mythic Plus, by the way. Obviously, like, you know... Tank meta doesn't really exist in Raid. It's basically whatever buff your Raid team's missing. Play that tank. This is obviously going to be a little bit more for Mythic Plus. But every affix rework and change that they made for Season 2, Paladin has a direct answer for. Plain and simple. Freedom. Entangled, there's the new one that you have to kick, and the new one that you have to dispel. Look at that! Paladin has infinite kicks, and a dispel. Not to mention their dispel is poison disease, which is actually going to be incredibly important in a couple of these dungeons, and it's just nice to be able to have it. On top of that, just the sheer amount of utility that you're bringing. AoE stops, single target stun on an insanely short cooldown, sack, blessing of protection, you have a full taunt immunity. The amount of stuff that Paladin brings to the table for next season, and this is even after the nerf, they just have an answer for everything. There's no week where Paladin is just bad. Like, they just straight up have an answer for everything. On top of that, the rotation isn't that complicated. It's a lot more simple, especially when you're talking about some of the other DPS rotations or things that you have to watch out for, like Blood DK or Brewmaster or even Vengeance. But yeah, so Paladin S tier, no brainer. Even after the nerfs, their damage is A-okay. Their defensives is, I mean, they've got a ton of them. And the sheer amount of utility they have for this season. Because it's not just how good is the tank, but how good is it going to be in the content that it's going to be running. And sometimes a certain tank can be okay, but the content that they're running is just, they're suited for it. And Paladin is strong. They're not just okay. They're very strong. And it seems like all of the content that there is directly suited for how good Paladin can be. So, yeah. Plain and simple. Guardian Druid. Now, Guardian Druid was one that I had a lot more high hopes of. Their tier set is pretty dope, actually. It's really good. They have access to a dispel, and this is going to be a very important topic of conversation. It is Poison Curse, and poison is going to be rather prevalent as well in a lot of these dungeons, but not as important as the disease dispel, but just having access to it is nice. The problem with Bear is getting access to it. It's like really tough, and it sucks to try. Admittedly, it's really not a fun thing to try and get, because you have to give up a lot of really good stuff to get it. That just kind of is what it is, really. Now, they did announce that Bear is getting a rework. From what I've heard, the person that did the Paladin rework is doing the Guardian Druid rework. So, high hopes there, but we're not tiering this on high hopes. We are, tiering this on where I think they can be. Now, in Pugs, Bear actually does offer a lot. Good AoE stops, a lot of utility, like, you know, Guardian, like just Druid utility, right? And on top of that, you have the Wild, the Mark of the Wild buff, which has always been very strong in Season 1, and is going to continue being strong in Season 2. And the tier set, it complements them very, very well. Bear was already a pretty good damage-dealing tank, and now it's going to be a lot more damage-dealing as well. The new tier set goes a little bit more towards the physical build, which I think might see more common play in lower keys. And by lower keys, I mean not bleeding edge keys. So, you know, 15 to 20 range, the physical build might come out on top for pugging. I'm going to put this high B. I would have had this in low A before, but this is one I've been fighting myself on. I'm going to put this in high B. I think after the rework, if the person that did the Paladin job does even half as good of a job on the Bear one, we're going to see Bear shoot right up. But right now, I want to say high B tier. I don't think there's any content next season where Bear is going to be just terrible, but I don't see them overperforming in a lot of the content either. I think they're just going to be a good, solid option that you can pick up and play, and they're never going to be bad, right? It's never going to be bad. Okay. They're not going to be great, but they'll always be solid. There we go. Blood Decay. Now, Blood Decay is one that, again, I have gone over back and forth. I've turmoiled over. The thing with Blood Decay is they are the absolute king of self-sustain. And anybody who's watching me play Blood on stream sees how crazy I sometimes pull, and they're like, I'd never do this on a bolstering week. And I'm like, as long as I have 1 hit point. And they're like, your health bar, though. I'm like, my health bar doesn't matter. As long as I have 1 and enough runic power to Death Strike, my health bar does not matter. It's all about keeping that runic power up to be able to get the Death Strike and to keep yourself alive. Now, there is always the chance that you get global. That is always a thing that can happen. This is why we have Purgatory. Great ability. You should run it. It's fun to see how much you need to pull to proc it. It can be. But they are the king of self-sustain, and they are insanely good at control. They have a lot of stops through double grips, and okay DPS, and their new tier set is just going to amplify their healing, giving you a lot of random procs of Vampiric Blood, which is also going to give you Vampiric Strength, which is going to increase your strength by 10%, which is really, really nice, both offensively and defensively as well. I'm going to put these in low A tier, just because I think they're just going to be strong in any content that you have. Now, one thing that hurts Blood in this scenario here is they just straight up don't have a Dispel. So one of the things that I'm doing with cross-faction play is I'm actually going to be swapping my Zandalari Troll DK over to Dark Iron Dwarf DK. Number 1, Firebeard. Love it. Number 2, it removes a Dispel. It removes the need for a Dispel every 2 minutes. And that's really, really strong while gaining primary stat. But this isn't a tier list based on races. I think they're just going to be all around super solid in whatever content you're running, but I just don't see them being the best. And honestly, ease of play, it's got a high ceiling to get into, but once you get into it, it's really not that big of a problem. And the tier set is fixing Heart Strike and Blood Boil damage by increasing it by 20%, so that is going to be a nice little band-aid for that, for DPS. Prot Warrior. In an organized group setting, Prot Warrior is high A tier. And it's not that Prot Warrior got nerfed, and it's not that Prot Warrior got worse. I'm putting this in low A tier. It is an incredibly solid spec, but it does require pugs that you're with to at least know what you're doing. Now, the thing with Prot Warrior is it's not very difficult, right? You're low on health, they heal that health back up, because you don't have many ways to self-sustain. Easy. But there's a lot of people that don't know how to heal that sometimes, and sometimes you're like, I've been at 20% health for like 10 seconds now, and I really could use a heal. Because people are, oh yeah, okay, you're not a paladin, you can't just lay on hands yourself. Yeah, you're right, I can't, please heal me. Actual conversation I've had with a pug in World of Warcraft. As a prot warrior. Yeah. And they suffer from a lack of Dispel. Their self-sustain is okay, but there is a lot of bleed and dot damage in some of the upcoming content that we're going to be seeing in Mythic Plus. And you are going to be relying on a healer or a DPS to be able to dispel you consistently and constantly. And that is not always going to be fun. I don't like relying on pugs to do stuff, but you do have a lot of tools. Like, you do have one self-dispel every 3 minutes that you can opt into, but 3 minutes is a very, very long time, especially when you look at Paladin, who has 8 seconds. Yeah. Balanced? Oh, whatever. But Warrior's still in a very, very strong state. They deal a lot of good damage, and when played well, an absolutely solid, sturdy tank. I just think this one here is going to need a little bit more pug help than some of the others. Brewmaster, now this one, oh man, okay, Brewmaster. Brewmaster. I love Brewmaster. I've had a lot of fun with Brewmaster this tier, but I actually think losing their tier set is going to hurt them a little bit more defensively than what some people may care to admit, especially the average player. Now, the pro players and the people that are like gods at the spec, you know, the ones that are topping Raider IO charts, that's not going to matter as much for them, but for the more average Brewmaster player, losing Brewmaster's Rhythm, which will grant you 12% extra stagger clear, which also means more Gaiplyn's brew healing, I think is going to hurt the average Brewmaster a lot. And the new tier set revolves around Elusive Brawler and dodge chances, which on its own can be very strong, but is also RNG. No matter what you do, it's your chance to dodge. Now, of course, your chance to dodge goes well up to 100%, kind of what already making it proc, and you are going to have ways to speed up that process. The problem is how you deal with undodgeable damage, which is going to add another layer onto the spec, where you need to know what is undodgeable and what is dodgeable. Kind of like Prot Warrior. Hey, this is spell reflectable. This is not spell reflectable. If you know something is spell reflectable, it becomes a non-issue. For Death Knights, if you know that something is anti-magic shellable, yeah, anti-magic shellable, it's not a problem. If you don't, you're going to get hurt a lot. Like, see what I mean? And they're adding that extra layer to Brewmaster on an already complex spec. Brewmaster, out of any one of the other tanks, is probably one of the more difficult ones to go in and reach. It's not easy to instinctualize when you are actively in trouble and you do need big heals, and sometimes you're like, okay, no, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm a god, I got this, and then sometimes like it can slightly start getting out of hand real quick. And I think that hurts the spec a little bit more, and adding that extra layer onto it is going to hurt the average player. But that being said, in good hands, somebody that loves the spec, I'm actually going to put this above... No. I'm going to put this I think this is equal. I've had a really, really hard time with Brewmaster on this one. I could go either or, because they do bring a stupid amount of utility, a poison disease dispel, and again, this is going to be the season of dispels. You're going to be wiping to non-dispels a lot. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. And that poison disease dispel is going to be really, really nice. Brackenhide Hollow, Halls of Infusion, Underrot, Freehold has a poison dispel, if I'm not mistaken, as well. I mean, Alderman has a like, we're talking like most of the dungeons here have some sort of poison or disease. So being able to just take care of that is really, really good. And I think if you take two people that are just averagely good at the spec and pugging a lot, I think Brewmaster would come out ahead. Most of the time. But I am fully willing to interchange these with zero issue. How's that? That works. Just because I think Brewmaster's really, really strong. They have high damage. It's really fun to play. And they bring insanely good utility. Vengeance Demon Hunter. Now this one here, whew. So, when they were creating the tier sets for last season and this season, the Blizzard devs had said they do not want to force you into a build to make a different build or different capstone talents completely unusable or that sort of thing. And they did the exact opposite with Vengeance. The new Fiery Brand build basically kills off the Cheat Death build. Like, it's... If you want to have any sort of Mythic Plus success, you have to now play the Fiery Brand build with the new tier. It's non-optional. That's what it is. And we will go over the Fiery Brand build in another video in my 10.1 Vengeance Demon Hunter guide. And I kind of knew this was going to happen because while Fiery Brand is a talent up top in the Vengeance talent tree, there's a lot of Fiery Brand talents in the talent tree in the lower right-hand side that all interact with it, which is very good. I want those talents to interact with it. The problem is Vengeance needs a rework in itself. I've been saying this for a long time. The tree is too wide, you can't get what you want, and you have to spend way too many points on Demon Spikes. That's the little succinct version. There is a video on that already. And the new build is actually, like, I enjoy the Fiery Brand build. I don't want to shit on that build at all. The problem with it is you go from this state of being insanely tanky, like, nothing can kill you, you are just a god, to being a sheet of paper in half a second flat. Like, it's just the moment your Fiery Brands wear off and you've got nothing else, you are just 10 ply. Like, it's... And the average player is going to struggle with this. You're going to see Vengeance Demon Hunters do really, really well, then something's going to drop for them, and they're just going to straight up die. And they're not going to have Cheat Death to back them up for that, because it's pretty much impossible to get with the Fiery Brand build, which is what you don't want with the talent tree, which is kind of whatever. I am really looking forward to playing Vengeance and the Fiery Brand build. I like complex tanks, which is why I've actually liked Brewmaster a lot this season, but this is going to hurt the average player. Not being able to go into the last resort tanky build, quote-unquote tanky build, in Mythic Plus for the average player is going to hurt them a lot. But I'm going to put them in high B for the more average player. For the more skilled Vengeance Demon Hunter, I would put them I would probably keep them all tied here. So let's say, like, here, we'll put a row above. We'll put, I do think Blood is going to be insanely good with all the factors that I've said before. A tier could honestly be any which way here, and then Bear in B tier. I still think the problems with Bear are a little bit too prevalent with what's going on. I'm excited for their rework, but I think Vengeance still needs their rework there. This is what we'll do here. This is kind of how I see it's going to play out for most of the 99% of us, right? Like, Prop Pally is obviously going to be the meta no matter what, but I think a lot of people are sleeping on Blood, and as long as you have the capabilities of not being global, which is probably going to be most of the keys that most of us do, you are just still a god of self-sustain, and just having all of that Vamp Blood aura, Vamp Blood uptime is crazy, and then every other tank I think is just a solid option, and then Bear, I think, I had Bear higher before, I really did, but this video is starting to get on and on and on, and I am going to leave it there. I hope you guys enjoy your day. Thank you very much for watching right up until the end. Have yourself a good one. Happy tanking. Bye.